folks clicking up, looking like you tough, acting like you banging now, nigga. Walk around with that flag out your pocket until the real come and ask what you claiming now, nigga. 1, 2, 3, oh shots from a loose cannon and it's blazing through your torso, nigga. 1, 2, 3, oh shots from a loose cannon and it's blazing through your doors now, nigga.
Yeah, nigga, that locust back. Come through your section, them shells rat-a-tat-tat. Cause what you banging, what you claim, you know what's up. If a person know, got that dagger exposing your fucking guts. Yeah, that blue been in me. Free my big cousin, cuz like me. Our gang's different, but we both bleed blue. Heart pump no Kool-Aid, them shots come through. I stay true blue, been true to that blue. Been true to the cause, so what about you?
What's cracking, what's rolling YouTube? It's your Low Phantom Low, aka Silk the Loaster, and you're watching Keeping It 3100. And for all the new viewers, please like, comment, subscribe to the channel. For everybody else, you already know what it is, what time it is. Let's get to it. Today, I'm going to be telling the story of how I got involved in Crippin. How did I start? I'll make sure I don't leave not one detail. That being said, let's get right into it. Now, I spoke on this in many different occasions. My first time was on a Dustyvisiontv interview, and I even made a song called Blue Life. If you type up Silk the Loaster, Blue Life is a single from my new project that I'm working on. It'll be there. But to make it easier on y'all, the link to the song is going to be at the bottom. So like, comment, subscribe on that Joan too. That's my music page, Silk the Loaster. SILCDALOHCSTA. Now, it all started in 2008. Now, before that, I was just a regular dude, just going to school, you know, getting an education, all that, you know, didn't know shit about shit, you know. And then one day, a son of my mom's friend was chilling with his mans and all that shit, and I was around. They were babysitting or whatever, some shit like that. And his friend started talking about Crips and Bloods and all that. And he started telling me about them and all, right? And as I was listening, it seemed kind of interesting and all that. So I wanted to learn more. So, you know, just started learning about it and all that. And then I noticed a lot of things when it has to do with like my personal life in terms of family. You know, like I always say, it's a specific way that we carry ourselves, a specific way we walk, we talk, we act like, and all that, you know. And I noticed, you know, it was something when it comes to my family and Crips, I always got that vibe, like they could be, or, you know, and sure enough, I was spot on the nail and all that. Really, to be honest with you, that blue bandana, that blue flag is really like a family crest to me, and like my cousins and all that. But how does that pertain to me specifically? Well, now I'm gonna tell you the story how it all began. So my dad, he's to this day a school bus driver from 1999 all the way to 2025 and shit, right? Now, he used to drive these kids, you know, to Churchill High School and all that, et cetera, and they lived in this neighborhood called Scotland. you know. And they fucked with my dad. They were really cool and all this shit. But one day, you know, they just started being two-faced, started disrespecting and all that. And all of a sudden, word was out about these guys called the vampires and stuff. And some of them dudes went to middle school with me and all that. In a way, it runs in the family. Like Jay Williams say, some are chosen, some choose it, and for some, they didn't have a say in the matter. Me, personally, if you was to ask me, I'd say I was chosen for this, because no matter what alternative and shit I was trying to fill that void and all that, life always brought me back to this. So that was in my mind, and true shit, I take it as that's life way of saying, this is who I am, this is what I am, this is what I'm supposed to be, and it was been set in stone. So that's what it is, and that's what it's been, and that's what I'm gonna die as. But anyway, let's get back to the story. So, found out they was Bloods. Right? My dad, you know what I'm saying? I told him a little bit about it and all this, that, third, and you know what I'm saying? He got a little nervous. I was like, Pops, don't be nervous. Just keep doing your job, you know what I'm saying? Let me handle that. He's like, I don't want you fighting my battles, this, that, third. I'm like, Pops, I got it. So one day he was doing some work, or he went somewhere or some shit like that, Sunday. He would always be wearing bandanas on his head when he's doing some work, you know, like a sweat rag or whatever, right? One of them was blue. It was a light blue. I went in his drawer while he was not at home and all that. And I found it, I took it, put it in my backpack. The next day was Monday, time to go to school. Went to school. I didn't go straight to the building. I went to the blacktop. And I waited for most of the kids that was getting off the buses to go in the building and all that, in the cafeteria and all that, because that's where everybody be posted until the bell rings for everybody to go to their lockers and all this other shit. So what I did was I went to the blacktop, opened up my backpack, took out the blue bandana and all that, put it in my left pocket. You know what I'm saying? I walked up that mount or whatever, and opened the door, walked through, and I walked slow enough that way everybody will notice. I caught a whole bunch of double looks, double takes and all that, mean mugs, you know what I'm saying? And a couple of people were like, oh yeah, that's you? That's what it is? For real? Those your true colors? And I said, yeah, that's me. What's cracking with it? This is me. You know what it is now. And at that school, it turned out I was the only Crip at that motherfucking school. Yep. And even a blood nigga, or should I say, well, now he's a Paru nigga, he converted, but I'm not even going against that. But anyway, he even told me years later, do you know why you was going through all that hell back in middle school? Why? Because you were the only one in that school that was screaming out Crip shit. Yeah, because that's me. The fuck? You know what I'm saying? It could be just one of me, or it could just be two of us, or three. It don't matter. Crippin solo, Crippin with homies, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? I'm not just going to be doing that shit while I'm around a bunch of niggas, you know what I'm saying, that's Crips as well. I'm a Crip by myself, independently, or with a set. It don't matter. At the end of the day, that's who I am, not just what I am. While everybody else was screaming Sue Whoop and being part of an actual blood gang, or they were just affiliated, Now, before I continue, let me break this down. Affiliated and official. Affiliated, in my opinion, it's like, okay, you rocking a blue flag or a red flag or a burgundy flag and all that. Okay, that's how you identify yourself, this, that, and third and all that shit. Or a black flag, you know what I'm saying? That's how you identify yourself. But to be official, you gotta wear that secondary flag, that second color. For instance, my set, Harlem 30s, blue and brown. 5 Deuce Hoover, blue and orange. Gardena Paybacks or shotguns, blue and green. Gangster Crips, they wear blue and gray and whatever third color that comes with it. Neighborhood Crips, blue, powder blue, light blue, however you want to put it. And some of them even have a third color to go with that too and all that. So that's what it is. Me, I was just rocking a blue bandana. But at that time, I didn't know the light blue stood for Neighborhood Crip and all that shit. I just thought it didn't matter as long as it's blue and all that. But that's when, you know what I'm saying, I decided to get my own blue flag and all that. But anyway, back to the story. While everybody else was yelling out Sue Whoop or yelling out their hoods, Southside from DC, or, you know what I'm saying, this, that, or whatever hoods were being bused to the middle school at that time and all that, you know what I'm saying? Because you had niggas that was getting busted and all that shit. Niggas was screaming out their hoods and all that, this and third. But anyway, while niggas was screaming out their hoods or niggas saying Sue Whoop and all that, I was the only one that was yelling, Crip! Straight up. And where I'm from, especially at that time, we were very unlikable. Nobody favored us. Nobody fucked with Crips. So once I identified myself, I had to deal with the blues. Outside, I had to run it. And yeah, I'll admit it. I got my ass whooped many times. Because it was more of them. You know what I'm saying? And me being the only Crip at that school and all that shit, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, put 2 and 2 together. But yeah, it was really hell back in those times, and I wasn't the only one that was going through that shit. Others had to go through that shit too when I came across them, especially years later, remembering them times and all that. You know, how you know if somebody had been through that and all, someone that was been out there and all that shit, you know, we speak the same story, speak the same shit, went through the same or similar experience. I met a couple my age and older that went through the same shit. Us Crips were very, 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 very extremely small in number. We were the minority, okay? And at that time, it was really rare to come across us. It was really rare to come across our kind. It was like you would have to know exactly what you were looking for and where. Otherwise, you would have to either go to LA and, you know, do the procedures and all that shit. Or you would have to know somebody. And that was just to get your official. But to find, you know what I'm saying, the homies, it was really word of mouth or hearsay. Because we wasn't, you know what I'm saying, we wasn't out in the open like that. And the number one rule we had back in them days is, no matter what type of Crip you are, gangster, neighborhood, Roland, Hoover, you know what I'm saying, block, etc., etc. If you see another Crip in need of aid, especially when it comes to the enemies, you help cuz. But yeah, it was a really rough time because if it wasn't the hood niggas you had to deal with, it was the bloods. And if it wasn't the blood niggas you had to deal with, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes, for some individuals, you know what I'm saying, you would have to go against them essays and all that shit. But basically, everybody was on you if you was a Crip and all that. If they knew you was a Crip or you identified yourself as a Crip, they was on your ass. It didn't matter. You know what I'm saying? From the malls to the streets, anywhere, they was on your ass. It was a really challenging, fun sometimes, but definitely a challenging time for us. But you know, every time I got into a squabble and all that shit, all it did was just make me more stronger and all. So it got to a point where I started making a name for myself and all that. You know, I started throwing hands and all that to the point where I just enjoyed doing that shit. And one thing about us Crips is that we love to fight. So that's what I was doing. So all of a sudden, these hood niggas, you know what I'm saying, I guess they got bused to their original schools or whatever the case is. I don't know what the case was. But I didn't see much of the vampires at the school anymore either. I don't know if the school did like a cleanup or I don't know. But all of a sudden, these skinheads started coming up to the school and all that shit. And now, I'm not gonna lie, fighting the skinheads, that shit was fun. Okay, because them motherfuckers was just talking all this shit, all this racist bullshit and all this shit, but they were getting punked and all that. So, I mean, it was fun. You know, fucking with them and all that shit. That shit was fun. Crip versus skinhead, that shit was fun. But as I'm doing this, I'm still learning. And someone put me on the gangland and all that, and I watched the episode about Crips. Now, one thing I remember was when Barefoot Pookie was on there, and he said the gangs were our family. We called each other cuz. And I noticed, you know, people in my family say cuz, but they in Houston. Some people would say, well, that's the thing in the South. But no, I mean, as you know, as fluently or however you want to put it, they say it and all that. That's number one. And two, now, a lot of homies, they have a specific gang movie that they like and all that shit that added on to their influence and all that, right? Most of the ones I came across that were older than me and all, they were influenced by Colors. And then the ones my age, you know, some of them were influenced by Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society and all that. Me, kind of different. It was Baby Boy. And, you know, they say cuz a whole lot in that movie. And, you know, I watched that movie again, add 2 and 2 again. I was like, oh, shit, these niggas is Crips. So I gravitated more so. I was already gravitated to Crippin and all that, especially because learning about the cause, their purpose, and all that. But just learning about that, and that they were in Baby Boy, I gravitated to them more so. Now, because it was really rare to come across my kind out there and all that, didn't matter what type, just my kind, Crips and shit, you know. I was part of a hybrid crew. Small time. You could say less than small time. And it was just only a few of us. And we just made this crew until we found our true homes. Basically, the sets or gangs that we truly belong to. Like, for instance, one dude, I know he identified himself as Blood, and he went with a set. I forgot what the set was called and all that, but he found his home and all that. The other dude, well, he didn't want to do it no more. I mean, that just goes to show you it was never in him. You know what I'm saying? He was just doing it because it just seemed cool at the time and all that. But, you know, and then the essays and all that shit, they went their path and all that, whatever the case is. Now, me as a Crip and all that, I was the last one to find my home, but I'm going to tell that story in another video and all that. But we just made that crew until we found our true homes and all that shit. Which, now, freshman year of high school, my full-on prime in Crippin. Man, I was something else back then. But anyway, the issues I had with them skinheads carried on to ninth grade and all that. So when I saw them, I was on their ass and shit. You know, I was pressing the line, even though there was, you know, I was independently Crippin at that time. I wasn't involved with no specific set or anything like that, you know. Like I said, I was just affiliated, you know what I'm saying? I was not false flagging, which, let me point this out. False flagging to me, it's like when you're saying you are rolling 60, rolling 30, A-Tray, Hoover, or some shit like that, and niggas make that call, and nobody has ever heard of you or anything like that. That's my definition of false flagging and false claiming. You know what I'm saying? Or if you're wearing a flag, like a brown flag or orange flag and all that shit, but you ain't been officially put down. That's false flagging. You rocking a blue flag, red flag, burgundy flag, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, you might get a few questions and all that shit, but they're not going to be on your ass like as they would if you was rocking the secondary color and you haven't been officially put on and all that. So, like I said, I was just rocking my blue. At that time, my favorite was royal blue, and that's what I was rocking. Anyway, that beef got carried over and all that, and at that time, I got involved with the football team and shit. And crazy thing is, that summer, I watched Gridiron Gang. And I would say that was that movie came out in what, 2006? So 2 years later is when I started Crippin. But that was my generation right there. That was in that movie. In the neighborhood I was living in at that time, you know, you just had a bit of everything there. Well, I wouldn't say everything, but like, you know, you had your regular civilians and all that. And then you had, you know what I'm saying, me, the Crip, and then my mans, you know what I'm saying, who was in grades like a little bit higher than me and all that shit. He was a blood and all that. And he remembers when I first started Crippin and I came out the house and all that, well, I should say apartment, and rocking my blue flannel, you know what I'm saying, blue chucks, blue flag around my head and all that. He always used to be like, "What up, Lo?" So when I got into the school and all that, he saw me, he was like, "Oh shit, what up, Lo?" I'm like, "Yep, I'm in here now." So then he introduced me to some of his homies and all that shit. And he's like, "Yeah, this is the Crip that lives in my neighborhood and all that." And then, you know, his niggas was cool and all shit. They weren't bloods or anything like that. You know, they just were regular hood cats and this, that, and third and all that shit. But they were cool and all. But that was when one of them was telling me about the 8-ball. And I didn't even know what the 8-ball was at that time and all that stuff. And because, you know, my Crippin influence was the Cali West Coast ways of Crippin and all that. I was not really familiar with the East Coast ways and all that shit. But anyway, he told me what the 8-ball is, something about with the GDs and all that shit. I'm like, I've never heard that in my entire life. And then I ran into my mom's friend's son, you know, who has that friend that told me about Crips and Blood in the first place. I ran into him. Well, I say we ran into each other in the Giant and all that. And he noticed what I was wearing. I was wearing a blue flannel, blue chucks, this, that, and third, and all this shit. Blah, 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 blah. And he was like, "Hold on. Are you a Crip?" And I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "That's what it is." But in his head, he was probably like, "Damn it." I mean, hey, you know, it is what it is. Only thing he told me to do was be careful, but I wasn't that same little boy anymore that needed a babysitter or whatever the case was. I wasn't that dude no more. So at that time, I was always starting fights at school and all that shit during lunchtime, or like when we first come in the morning and all that shit, you know what I'm saying? Just get a little fade in, you know what I'm saying? Just get my hands warmed up and all that shit. anyway, yeah, that time was fun and all. You know what I'm saying? But then I had to chill out because one of the coaches in the football team was a security as well. And he caught word, you know, about my Crippin activities and shit. And I'm like, what, one of the students tell you this, that, and third? And he's like, I'm not at liberty to tell you and all that shit. So crazy thing is, yeah, he told me who it was, and it wasn't who I thought it was. It wasn't any of the kids in school. It was my dad. I'm like, dang. So I go home that day. I'm like, what's this you telling him about, you know what I'm saying, what I'm doing with my Crippin and all that? And he's like, you know, he just being a dad, how he worries and all. I'm like, man, look, I know what I'm doing. This, that, and third, you know, like, you know, when you that age, 14, 15, all that, you know what I'm saying, you have your certain program and certain way you want to go and this, that, and third and all that. And that's just what it was. But because of that, I guess security had to go through protocol and call the cops. So one day at lunch, they caught up to me and all that, pulled me to the side, started asking me these questions. And they took a picture of my face. Had, you know, like this hair that you see and all that, but it was a bit more curly at that time and all. And they took a picture of my hands and all that, even though I didn't have no tattoos and all that. They wanted me to throw up signs and all this other shit, you know. But it was definitely my face that they wanted to take a picture of, so you know how that shit goes. So, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, that's basically the story of how I started my Crippin. And I'm going to tag the song and Dustyvision interview at the bottom for y'all to go peep and all that. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's basically the story right there. Stupid ass bikes. Anyway, see you guys in the next video. Keep your thumbs up, seats high, you know what I'm saying? Keep it 3100.
You don't know now what's that I claim? I claim 3-0. You ask what I bang? I bang 3-0 with the A in the middle. Avenues, cuz, but I ain't with the riddles. Keeps it 3100, but people not like me. I see the weird shit going on repeatedly. But I'm a go-getter, I goes and gets. Never a lazy ass nigga ambitious with my bets. Cross the line, pay the debt. Even with your life, pay the debt. Gotta pay the toll, that's how life rolls. I seen too many plays solid, but they always fold. Had a beating heart, froze that shit cold. Don't give a fuck, I'm in that fucking mode. Seen one side, but now it's the other side. One slick mouth, that life of yours, bye bye.